my blog, there was a lady that wrote to me and she said that she was going to try the concha recipe because her father-in-law was in the hospital with stage 4 cancer, and that all he wanted was to taste pan dulce again. And she says, and I don't know where they lived. I don't remember what the story was, but she says, we can't get it. And she goes, I'm going to try your recipe so I can take some pan dulce to him, because that's all that he wants, that memory, that flavor. And I mean, there's just...
Hola y bienvenidos. Welcome to Mole Mama Cooking with Love. Delighted that you're here with us today. And I'm super excited because we have a very special guest for you. But I'm telling you, be prepared. You're going to get hungry if you go over to her blog or her website or her Instagram. And she has all kinds of amazing Mexican food. I have Sonya from La Pina en la Cocina here with us today. And she is a food blogger, a recipe creator, a taste tester, and she's from Monterrey, Mexico, and grew up in Los Angeles and considers New York her home. So Sonya, welcome to Mole Mama. I'm so delighted that you're here.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. La Piña en la Cocina is a food blog that I started back in 2014. I was currently working for Hispanic Kitchen, which is a big Hispanic food site, developing recipes. I was like their resident chef there, and people encouraged me to start my own blog. And growing up, my dad gave us all nicknames, and my nickname was La Piña, which is little pineapple, because my hair was actually very light colored and it used to stand up. Not anything like what it is today, but so La Piña is where La Piña en la Cocina came from, because that, I had a real close relationship with my parents and my dad especially. They both cooked. So it was natural for me to want to use that name for the blog, because that's just who I am, La Piña.
So you have a really cute picture on your blog. I think you're under the sink, your little girl.
Yes, that's where my dad was. He used to play hide and seek with me, and he would say in Spanish, ¿Dónde está la piñita? Where's the little pineapple? And I'd be all dirty under the sink.
It's such a cute picture.
It's like, oh my gosh, it's like, how did I fit under there?
That is so lovely.
But yeah, that's what he would say. He said he would play hide and seek with me, and he would say, ¿Dónde está la piñita? And I'd be like hiding, but I wasn't really hiding. But I love that picture.
It's really cute. I loved all the pictures on your blog of your family, the black and whites. They're so lovely.
Thanks.
So nice. Okay. So you were told to start this blog, and why? Just because people thought you had great recipes?
I was told that I should start a blog because people loved my recipes on Hispanic Kitchen, and they said you really need to start your own blog because you have so many stories and so many recipes, so you need to develop that. And of course, I was like super busy with Hispanic Kitchen. I was basically developing 10 recipes a month for them every month for several years. And I mean, it gave me the most incredible experience with writing recipes, because it was not just about the recipe, it was about writing about the food. So I did that for probably 5 years. And then in between then, I did end up starting the blog. But since I didn't have a lot of time to dedicate to the blog, I would just kind of go over there and add a recipe and then go back to Hispanic Kitchen. And so it was like that for a couple of years. So I didn't really get to develop the blog as much as I wanted to. But then my job ended with Hispanic Kitchen in 2017, early 2017. And so then I went full force with the blog. And, and I have other, fellow food bloggers who said to me, if you're really serious about this, you're going to have to spend some money, to invest into your blog, and so I did. And I still am, and I'm still learning, and it's still, work in progress. And so that's where I am right now, but it's super busy for me right now. So it's allowed me a lot of opportunities to travel, to meet my fellow food bloggers, and to do a lot of wonderful jobs. You know what I mean? So I'm like, I can't believe it sometimes. It's like, my goodness, this thing's like growing, like, but I love it. I love doing it.
So when you talk about, so for our listeners who don't know what ends up happening with food bloggers, and you say, I get to travel. What does that mean? You get to travel.
Well, you get to travel because sometimes you're contracted to do certain jobs. Like sp- going back to Meli, um, um, both of us worked on a campaign together for Rumba Meets, and the whole concept of the story was for me to fly to Dallas to meet Meli. It was they made a whole storyline about it, and it was about friends meeting through the love of cooking. And so we both worked for Rumba. We both, obviously had food blogs, Mexican food, and so they flew me to Dallas to meet Meli, and they recorded the whole little story, and we cooked together, and it became a whole. And so that's how Millie and I knew each other online. But then when Roomba approached us about that, I mean, it was like, what? So we became super close friends. So now every year, sometimes twice a year, I go to Dallas and we cook together. So, and we've traveled together to Los Angeles, we've traveled to New York City together. So, yeah, that's what I mean when someone says, "Hey, we want to hire you to travel," we're like, "Yes."
Melly has Mexico in My Kitchen, which is an
Hmm.
amazing blog and has been
Yes,
on our
very
podcast.
inspirational for when some of us who were first starting in the food blogging business. So Melly helped a lot of us.
That is outstanding.
Yeah.
So how did you start cooking? Like, how did that begin? Was it with your
Well, it was always my mom cooked pretty much every day, so it was part of our routine. It was not like I mean, we would go out occasionally, but not very often because there was 8 kids in our family, so my parents couldn't afford to go out. So, and that's how it was. My dad cooked, my mom cooked, and then eventually, as we got older, we learned to cook. Because it wasn't like we weren't going to wait for my mom to cook for us if we were hungry. So we just learned to cook. Basic things, not anything crazy, but and so you either loved it or you didn't love it, and I loved it. So it's like I just always cooked since I was, I don't know, maybe 12. I don't know.
And so how do you develop your recipes? Who tastes them for you? Is it all you or
Well, the whole thing started really because I was asked to teach cooking classes, and I was like, well, okay. And had no idea about developing a recipe. I just knew that you added a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and that's how my mom cooked. So, and my mom had no written recipes. Everything was from memory. So, you just kind of started, and when I was just like, okay, well, I'm going to make this recipe and then I'm going to write down exactly what I'm doing. Because what you actually do and what I used to write down, what I thought the recipe was, were two totally different things. It's like, so then it became easier, because it was like, okay, you have to just watch what you're doing. Okay, add a little bit of salt and pepper. Does it need more? It was a lot of writing, a lot of notes, a lot of testing of recipes. But eventually, after writing those recipes for Hispanic Kitchen, yeah, I got the hang of it. So I can write a recipe pretty easy in my head and developed it. I
that's
mean,
fantastic.
that experience.
So did you have a favorite recipe that your mama used to make that
Um, I seem to always go towards, like, if I want comfort food that reminds me of home. She did what they call asado de puerco, which is like a pork chile colorado, but in Monterrey it's known as asado de puerco. And so, and it's a pretty popular recipe. But when I first got on, people were not like when I first got on Pinterest. It was like there was hardly any Mexican food on there, and I was like searching and searching, and now it's like, holy cow! No, you couldn't find anything authentic on there. Now it's like, wow! It's like you just go to Pinterest, you can find anything on there, but it's amazing.
that's outstanding. And now so that's your favorite the recipe that your
Yeah,
mother
asado de
used to make.
puerco, I would
Okay.
say, is my favorite. That reminds me a lot. I mean, there's a lot of dishes, but that one stands out to me the most. Yep.
And can you tell our listeners who haven't made it before what a little bit more about that recipe?
Sure,
'Cause
it's just
I've
it's a super easy recipe. It's basically pork shoulder, pork butt, cut, and then basically the sauce is like a dried chile ancho sauce with garlic, oregano, and cumin. That's basically it. And then at the end, my mom used to fry potatoes separately, and then she would fold them in at the end because it was a family of 10 people. So I always used to think maybe she's adding the potatoes so that it goes a longer way because even though people always think that in Mexico they eat a lot of meat. Well, we did eat meat, but it was limited sometimes. So we grew up on, beans and eggs and tortillas. So, the meat came in once in a while, but it wasn't like constant everyday meat filled, dishes. So when she made that, that's why it was like special because it was like, oh, we're having a salad puerco, and then she would make flour tortillas to go with them. So how could you not remember that?
I
How
agree.
could that not be
I
your favorite
I
dish?
love my mother's flour tortillas. Oh my
Yeah.
oh. Now see, we had a lot of meat when I was growing up because I was on a farm. So
Oh, okay.
so we were butchering our own pigs, our
Okay.
own
Yeah.
cattle, and so we had that. But what we didn't have is we didn't have chicken. Like we didn't eat
Yeah.
chicken. Like
Yeah,
chicken
we
was a really
did.
special
We did
thing.
chicken.
So, because we didn't raise them, so my mom would wait until they went on sale, and then okay, we had a huge family too, and so that was a special treat. So people like that I know, like my husband, who's like, "Why don't you make more chicken dishes?" And I'm like, That's not something I grew up
That's
eating a
not something
lot
you're
of.
familiar with. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
we did eat chicken. We did eat chicken.
but we had eggs. Definitely had eggs.
Yeah, eggs and beans and cheese and salsa and that was a
Yes, and
lot. I
those
remember that a lot.
tortillas.
Yeah, yeah.
So, what is your most popular recipe on your blog?
Wow. Well, I'd have to say that one of my most popular recipes is probably right now birria de res is pretty popular right now. Although that's not the recipe that I mean. I love the recipe, but like asado de puerco is one that I'm like, that's the one that I identify with. But the birria de res is just super popular right now. And still, like I always look at the top 5 recipes on my blog, and the pork tamales are always on there. Always, year round. It's on there. I think I finally try to convince people that you can make tamales other than Christmas time. It's a real recipe. You can make it. But you know how people are, they think it's a real challenge to make tamales, and it's like, oh no, it's so simple. To me it's simple. You just kind of break it down, and it's like the mole, right? You kind of figure it out, like people are like, I don't know how you make all that. I was like, you just break it down and do step by step. That's it. That's all you can do with any recipe.
Well, and how I found you, your recommendation from somebody that I was speaking to that said, I follow her because she makes really easy recipes step by step. So, for our
Yeah.
listeners, if you're looking for an authentic Mexican chef, a home chef, La Pina is a good one to check out because her recipes are tested and true. I've talked to people who have made them and said they're
Yeah.
fantastic. All right. So when I was looking at your blog, one of the things that stuck out to me, and I'm going to try to make soon, is that you have a lot of pan dulce. So
Yeah.
Mexican sweet pastries.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, you have elotes, which oh my gosh, that was my mother's favorite. It's my favorite. I haven't tried to make them, so I'm a little intimidated, but
Mhm.
woman, you have all this bread.
I know. Well, the reason, and I tell people the reason why I had to was because of the area I live in. There are no panaderias. There's nothing here. So how was I going to enjoy the pan dulce if I didn't attempt to make it myself? Uh, while I was working for Hispanic Kitchen, I was actually hired by Que Rica Vida, which was a General Mills company, and the first recipe they asked me to make step by step was conchas. I was like, "Are you kidding me?" I'm like,
Oh,
I knew very little about working with yeast bread besides making pizza or quick bread, and they wanted me to make conchas, and I was like, "Oh my god!"
oh my.
So that kind of spiraled into all this pan dulce. Once I learned how to make the sweet yeast bread, it was like, oh, okay, I get it now. And so then I tried this and I tried that. And my big thing right now is the dark chocolate conchas. Yes.
Oh,
It's
oh.
like, why not? I said to my husband one day, "Why not chocolate bread?" I said, "Why not?" And then it had to be a concha because it was like, come on.
Oh
It's
my
like
goodness.
the one pan dulce that everybody identifies with is the concha. I love it.
Yes, definitely. But yeah, and right now because of being sheltered in place, we can't go out and get bread. So I've been like, oh
No,
gosh.
and a lot of the bakeries weren't making bread anymore. They weren't making bolillos. They weren't making, and so people were like freaking out because they were like, I never met so many people that messaged me that wanted to know how to make bolillos.
Yes.
And they're freaking out because they can't find yeast. It's like, oh no. I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. You can't make that bread without yeast.
Yeah, I'm so grateful. I had bought a bunch right before all this happened. So, and usually I don't bake very often. I'm definitely more of a cook than a baker. And I was like so excited because I did make us pizza recently. I was like, yes, I have yeast.
Yeah.
So, and I want to make your elotes because I'm,
Yeah, you have to check out the revised recipe for the elotes because that is the best. Oh my goodness. I was so glad. I've done it a couple times and then I always felt like, there's something missing, something's not right. And so I thought I need to go back and visit that recipe again and do it over. I think it needs maybe this, maybe once I learned more, how to make the yeast bread and what worked better, then it was like I need to go back to the recipe. I'm so glad I went back to it because it's so much better now. It's so much better.
okay, well, I might be reaching out soon going, help. I don't know what I did.
KitchenAid? I'm like, "Do you have a KitchenAid?" I always ask everybody because 'cause they're like, I don't
I
have that
don't.
stand mixer."
I don't have that.
"Oh, well, you can do it by hand, but it just takes a little more effort to mix the
Uh-oh.
dough." Yeah. That's
Maybe.
why I tell everybody, "Oh, how do you think I did it before? I didn't always have a KitchenAid. I did everything by hand, all the bread by hand, and but that's how
Mhm.
they did it." I sort of people don't realize that in the old days, there was no stand mixer. You do everything by hand.
No,
I learned.
I need to invest in one of those.
Yeah,
I've
it's
been
very
trying to not to avoid that because then I'm like, oh, then I'm gonna have an excuse to be making stuff like that all the time. And bread is kind of my nemesis. I can't,
oh
it knows
gosh,
my
yeah.
name. If it's in the
I
house, it calls me. So
I know. That's awesome.
so do you ever make recipes or try recipes that just don't work out that are just
Yes, definitely. That's what the test kitchen is for. I mean, I tell and sometimes, I'll make them and I said, "Oh, I'm not gonna show this," but then sometimes on purpose, I'll show it on the, Instagram stories, and I'll say, "Look, this doesn't always work, but this is what I learned from it." That's what I try to tell people is that you have to learn from what you're doing. And I'm still learning, and I love the fact that when I find out something new, it's like, "Oh my god, I didn't know that. Why didn't I know that?" And so
And
and then once you learn it, and it's like you don't make that mistake again, or at least I don't think you do, but that's what I tell people, you have to test the recipes, it's not and they're like, "I tried your recipe and it didn't work," so then I start, like, grilling them, like, "Well, did you do this? Did you do that?" "Well, no," and I'm like, "Oh, okay." "That's what happened, that's why it didn't work," I said. "That's why you write the recipe," and I always encourage people to read the whole recipe from top to bottom because there's always tips and notes and revisions. Read it all and then go back to the top and get your ingredients ready. That's the easiest way to approach it.
and that's really good advice. Excellent advice. So can you share with our listeners something that didn't like some specific dish where you're like, ooh, no, that didn't work. I know it
Well,
happens.
there's actually several pan dulce recipes
Oh,
that didn't
really?
work, because I'm trying, like, okay, this combination, oh, this looks easy, and I try it, and so what happens is in the beginning there were when the recipes were hitting Pinterest in Spanish, it was great, but the recipes were all in these huge quantities and they were kilos and grams and so you had to translate everything to tablespoons and cups and this and that, and
Um,
that's what I would have to do is I'd go in, make my list, and I'd get all what I thought was the correct amounts and then read the directions, and I'd try it and it wouldn't work. And it was like something's not right here, you know what I mean? So that kind of stuff, but you have to test it. How do you know? That's how
um,
I found the elote pan dulce recipe from some Mexican website, but it was like these huge amounts of ingredients, and I'm like, I'm not gonna use that.
You're not gonna make
So like my mom's flour tortilla recipe, she says the first thing she tells me is like 5 pounds of flour. There's only 2 of us, but that's how she made them. And I'm like, I can't do that. And that was another thing too. I had to figure out, okay, I need to break this recipe down for the flour tortillas. It took me a lot of years to do that. And people were thinking, oh, you make it look so easy. I said, you don't know how many years I've been doing this. I said, I finally feel comfortable making flour tortillas. I said, it took me a long time to get to that point. And, I said, sometimes it works for people. They have good luck the first time, but most times it doesn't work because you have to know how everything's going to react together and feel the dough. That's why I always tell people, I always say, can I throw it in the stand mixer? I'm like, no, but do it by hand. I said, you have to feel the dough. I said, you have to feel it to know when it's right. I said, so anyway, yeah, there've been lots of recipes, but I still share them and tell people, don't do this. Yes. Oh, al pastor. I just remembered. Speaking of, well, I make al pastor recipes with pineapple, pork. Well, I didn't know that if you use fresh pineapple in pork or marinade, it 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 breaks down the meat to the point where it becomes mealy and it's not.
Really?
Yes. And I had learned that the hard way when making an al pastor recipe with pineapple in the marinade. Typically, I would make al pastor and I would add fresh pineapple, but it would go directly on the stovetop. It wouldn't marinate. Well, one day I decided I'm going to marinate it overnight. Next day, got it all ready. Beautiful tower of al pastor with pineapple. And then it baked or roasted. And then I take it out, start slicing it, and the meat was like chalk. It was like,
Oh,
oh my God. So that was a real bad
okay. This is a good tip to know. This is really a good tip.
So on my al pastor recipe all the time now, I tell people, please don't add fresh pineapple to the marinade because people want to. They want to, but that's not traditional to do that. So, but anyway, that was one of the hard lessons. But now I know, do not add fresh pineapple.
That's a
But
really great tip.
yeah, it's a good tip. But
So right now we're in shelter in place in California and New York. So how has your cooking changed during this time?
well, I can say that it's changed because for the fact that I'm trying to cook smaller portions. You know what I mean? I'm trying to cook like, okay, I know we're going to eat this. Like sometimes I'll even cook something with just 2 servings. We'll eat it. It's done. Trying not to have a lot of leftover food. Simply for the fact that I have a freezer full of food because you're trying to keep things so you don't have to keep going to the store that often. So if I cook smaller portions, then we can eat it in a couple days instead of me having because I freeze a lot of meals too.
Mm.
So I was used to cooking 6 to 8 portions so that I could have purposely have leftovers for freezer meals. But now I'm trying to scale it back, and also because you don't want to keep going to the store. You don't want to spend extra money right now because you're not really sure. You kind of have to, I don't know, be aware that hey, what if I don't have a job?
Right.
You know what I mean? Because
Yeah,
that's a lot of
absolutely.
people, and so you're just kind of holding on to everything, and you just try to be more, use a little more common sense, I guess, when it comes to purchasing ingredients. Don't buy a lot, even though at first everybody was like hoarding stuff. I don't know. It's like people, there's food out there. Calm down. It's like there's just no yeast. It's just no.
There's no yeast. It was really hard to find flour. Oh my gosh, the day that
Oh,
I
it's
got
not
my
here. I find it every time.
oh no, it's been really hard.
I haven't seen yeast though, but I have a big block of yeast that I've been working off of. So
The day that I got my 25 pounds of flour, I was like, I hit the lotto. So it was like I can make
I
tortillas.
I well, the thing people were asking me about were rice and beans. Nobody could find rice and beans, but most of my followers are from California and they don't realize that I live in New York.
Mhm.
They keep thinking I live in California, but anyway, so I said, "Really? Rice and beans?
Yeah,
I find
rice
it
and beans is
easier
really
here
hard.
because there's not a big Hispanic community." So So I even went as far as to send this one girl, I sent her a box filled with rice and beans.
Oh, that
I
is so
felt so bad
nice.
because I'm like, she's like, I can't find rice and beans anywhere. And I knew she has a young son, and I was like, I couldn't stand it. I sent her some rice and beans.
It's really nice of you. No, it's been really hard, and I still haven't been able to find long grain uh,
Really?
fried
Oh
rice.
yeah,
Yeah,
there's lots of that
no,
here. There's
mm-mm.
lots
And
of
I
that.
had a lot of beans because it's just we eat tons of beans, so I buy them all the time. But the rice has been really hard, and
Oh,
my husband found me some Uncle Ben's rice, and I
oh
was like,
yeah.
"Oh no, no,
Like, Uncle
no! I'm sorry, Uncle Ben's, but no, we're not."
Ben. Oh my
Because that's going in the like, oh, if we have nothing else,
yeah, that's going in the emergency kit.
emergency kit,
My
real
God,
emergency.
that's my last option.
Me too. Mm-mm. Okay, I saw something on your blog that really, I was like, what? She's doing what? I saw you're freezing avocados. Woman, how
Well,
do you
when the
do
whole
that?
pandemic thing started, people were freaking out about, that we can't find this, we can't find that, and I want to buy this and that and save it. And so, I thought the same thing for me, because I thought if I need to buy avocados, or if I see avocados and then there isn't anymore, what am I going to do to save them? And so of course I researched, because I freeze everything. I freeze everything, and so I thought, okay, well, I'm going to do the little test and freeze the avocado. And I have a vacuum sealer unit. So I tried one, I cut one open, vacuum sealed it, and it sat in the freezer, because I was only testing it. I wasn't going to leave it in there forever, but it seemed to hold up for like a week or so. It was nice and green and everything. And then someone told me, well, you can freeze them whole. And I was like, seriously? So I tried freezing them whole. It seemed to work also. I brought one out, cut it open. The only thing is that as soon as it gets oxygen on it, it wants to oxidize. You know what I mean?
Oh,
So
yeah.
if you're going to use it, you need to cut it, make your guacamole, and eat it.
All
Because
right.
it's not like, oh, you're going to open it, you're going to have these beautiful slices. No, because the freezer affects it and it makes it softer. So you can't slice it like you normally would. I think that the vacuum sealer works better, but not everybody has a vacuum sealer. But you can actually mash it and freeze it. And I do it with salsa. I make guacamole salsa and I freeze it all the time, and I keep it in there for months. And I bring it out and I let it defrost, throw it back in the blender to give it that volume again, and you eat it. It's fine. There's nothing, yeah. So I do it all the time, but I mean, I would prefer to freeze the guacamole salsa as opposed to the whole avocado, because that's what it's going to turn into mush anyway. But yeah, I mean, it's possible. It's possible to freeze it, but yeah, I freeze stuff all the time. Even vegetables, fresh peppers from my garden. I just used all the last of my habanero peppers from my garden last summer out of the freezer. Just like they
Do you blanch them or do you
no,
just
just put them in fresh, and then
and
I
you
bring them out. I roast them like I normally would on the comal or whatever. Yeah, they're perfectly fine.
okay, because my husband has he was showing me, he's growing me all kinds of peppers and I was like, oh, I'm gonna have to grill all these on my comal and then get them ready and prep them and then throw in the freezer,
Yeah,
but you're just doing them raw. Wow,
yeah,
that's
they're just going wrong.
okay. I'm gonna
Yep,
try it. See.
yep.
'Cause I have a whole bunch of poblano chilies right now in my
Oh,
freezer.
awesome.
I love those. But I
Yeah,
have done the whole thing where I put them on the comal, I peeled them, and they're just
yeah.
that's much easier. I like that
That's much easier. Yeah, and once they're all nice and flat and roasted, you can store them.
idea.
That's a lot easier. I would definitely do that. I wouldn't freeze those fresh, but
Okay.
definitely.
All right. Then I will try that. So, what has been some of the biggest surprises with La Pina and Cocina? What's like been shocking to you?
The biggest surprises I get are when you get those emails from people that have tried recipes, and um, because I think that I connect with people because of stories behind the recipes. And so I get those heartfelt emails from people like there's a couple that stand out right away. There was, speaking of conchas, there was in the beginning when I first added conchas to my blog, there was a lady that wrote to me and she said that she was going to try the concha recipe because her father-in-law was in the hospital with stage 4 cancer, and that all he wanted was to taste pan dulce again. And she says, and I don't know where they lived. I don't remember what the story was, but she says we can't get it. And she goes, I'm gonna try your recipe so I could take some pan dulce to him because that's all that he, he wants that memory, that flavor. And I mean, there's just stuff like that. And there was one that lady that worked at a prison in California, and she was, I think she was head of the kitchen there, and so she was looking for Mexican recipes. She said, that she could make in a volume amount, and she found my al pastor recipe, and she says, because the inmates are always saying, gosh, I wish you guys would serve some food that reminded us of home, someday. And so to surprise them one day, I guess they made the al pastor. She says, you would not believe, she was, there's 1,500 inmates, the silence in the lunchroom when they were eating the tacos. She goes, I swear that some of them cried because they were reminded of the food from home. And I mean, when you get emails like that, it's like, because, a lot of the days, and as I'm sure with you too, you get up and you're like, what am I doing? Do I want to do this anymore? Because it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. People do not realize how much work goes into a blog. And, you get frustrated because there's all these things that you have to do behind the scenes. And when I get emails like that, and then my husband says, that's why you do it. He says, that's why you do it. And I said, I know, because, you can't get that satisfaction, and it's like feeds your soul. You know what I mean? It's like, gosh, I can't believe I'm affecting people that way. You just, because you're cooking food, you know what I mean? So yeah, that's why we do it. That's why
So, what a beautiful story. So I'm all teared up because I'm a Llorona. So,
in the
what a
morning, I'm all like, oh my God. It's like,
no, food, I say this all the time, but food is such an intimate experience. It goes into our bodies. And so, thank you for sharing those stories. Those
yeah,
are beautiful stories. Wow.
absolutely.
And, you talked a little bit about some of the challenges of being a blogger, and it is a lot of work. So can you share with our listeners, like, some of the biggest challenges you face since you've been doing this?
The biggest challenge is right now, and I know a lot of bloggers will agree, is all of the rules and policies and things that are going into the blogs as far as rating on Google, your SEO, your picture format, labeling everything. And now the biggest challenge right now is the alternate text that you add to your photos on your blog needs to be precise, because otherwise it's not going to be friendly for people who have disabilities. If they go on your blog, and the photos need to be labeled, all of them. So right now, I find myself in a situation where I have almost 400 recipes that I need to go back in. And because in the beginning, all those things were not, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? In the beginning, when someone starts a blog, 10 years ago, whatever it was, those things were not existed. They did not exist. So you were just typing away and adding your pictures, and now for me, I have to go back. And this is all just like happening currently. So and also I get messages from women all the time saying, oh, I want to start a blog, can you give me some tips? And it's like, well, I'm going to tell you right now that you need to be serious about it. If if it's just a hobby, then okay, you can do it for fun, but there are things that you need to know going into it. It's not just you need time, money, and a lot of patience to do it. But you have to be serious about it, because it's not just like, oh, just something I'm doing now and then. And it's like, well, keep it simple. That's what I always tell them. You got to keep it simple and know that you're going to spend a lot of time over there.
Mm-hmm. It's a full-time gig. It definitely is more than a full-time gig.
Then some.
Yes, it is. Absolutely. I agree. Well, that's really helpful advice. And thank you for sharing that because I think the technology and just how much it changes is very challenging. And I think for me, with the technology piece, it's just like this whole idea that you need to kind of be everywhere. I
Mhm.
find really daunting. Just honestly, to you should be on Instagram and Facebook and
Oh, yeah.
YouTube, and it's like, oh my gosh, I'm one person. So like,
I just made a comment to a friend just yesterday that I felt like I said I feel almost a little overwhelmed, like I can't keep up with it on a daily basis because it is too much. And I get approached by people. Speaking of Instagram, because I have both followers that speak all English or all Spanish or both. But I do get approached by women who speak mostly Spanish, and they're like, "I wish you would do your Instagram stories in Spanish, your recipes in Spanish." I said, "I can't do both. You don't understand how much time it takes for me just to post them in English." I said, "For me to do them in Spanish too." I said, "I can't. I can speak Spanish because they don't believe I can speak Spanish. I think sometimes, but then I throw them off one day and I'll say everything in Spanish, and they're like, 'What?'" I said, "Well, my parents only spoke to us in Spanish growing up, so yeah, it kind of stays with you." But I said, "I can do it, but I don't have the time. I can't find the time." I said, "When would I do anything else? When
all
would I
right. No, I know it's an ongoing thing. Um, so I wanted to, because we're almost out of time. Is there anything else that you want to share with our listeners? And please tell them how to find you. So that,
Oh, yes. Well, you can definitely find me on Instagram.
yes,
I'm
definitely.
cooking daily on Instagram, on my Instagram stories. That's where I spend most of my time besides on the blog. But you can find me at La Pina or pinaenlacocina.com, not with the la in front of it, but pinaenlacocina.com on my blog. And I'm on Pinterest and I'm on YouTube now. Of course, my YouTube videos are mostly short tutorial videos. They're not like the long-winded ones, that you see in the old days. They're like 45 minutes long, and you're like, wait, what were they cooking? So I try to keep it short and simple because I just want people to have a visual of how the recipe comes together. It's not so much about doing details step by step like I do on the Instagram stories. But yeah, they can find me on all social media outlets. So I'm there.
Okay. Well, it has been an absolute joy to talk to you. And like I said, oh, it's morning in California. And if I had some of your pan dulce right now, my day would be perfection. So like I wish you were here and you could make
Yeah,
this
right.
up for me. But thank you for being on our show, and
Thank
thank
you
you
for
for
asking me.
everything.
Thank you for
And
asking.
you're
Any
welcome.
opportunity to talk about food is always fun. So
I agree. But thank you so much. And please continue to share those amazing recipes with us. And for our listeners, thank you for tuning in to Mole Mama. Remember to add the most important ingredient to every recipe you make, your love. And as my mama always said to me as we said our goodbyes, que Dios te bendiga. Be well, everyone, and thank you.